Hi, I'm Darlene Washington, and this is Spiritually Intriguing, the Church Edition. Here we are once again with one of our favorite pastors, Pastor Marcus L. Tabb, Hyde Park AME Church. And we've been having a wonderful discussion about various issues within the secular community. Now we're going to tackle a couple more. And speaking of the poor, we were talking about the poor earlier, and being able to survive and getting out here, getting a message of self-esteem communicated within. Having said that, there are people like Tupac, Biggie Smalls, Jay-Z, Eminems. These are entertainers, but they beat the odds with their music, striking the world as important, whereas other high society members saw them and their music as failures because of the messages in their music. Many of the messages in their music were negative, but they were indicative of what was going on in their surroundings. So how do we feel? How does the church, or how does this church, or how do you feel, not the church, but how do you feel about these individuals that are out here? Should we be embracing them the way that we are, or what do you think?
I think, to answer your question directly, I say yes, we should embrace them. Kind of a two-part answer. Mm-hmm. Yes, we should embrace them. Embracing them in the way that they are, I think that we would have to use discernment on how we embrace them, mm-hmm. and how we endorse them. Mm-hmm. I think what they are offering is an art form. Those artists that you named, I equate to almost like an athlete. Mm-hmm. There are millions of kids playing on basketball courts around this country, right, and only a few make it. Right. The same thing with our artists, mm-hmm. Whether it be R&B, hip hop, rap, gospel. Mm-hmm. There are millions of people who feel like that's how they can make it out of the ghetto, right, how they can make it out of their surroundings, how they can take care of their families, but only a few make it.
That's true.
And so if you're, as a craft, as an art form, I don't think that we should diminish what they do, because it's ours. Mm-hmm. It was created out of our community. Mm-hmm. It was created out of the hurt and the anger and the oppression in our community. Mm-hmm. That origins of hip hop and rap was just a form of expression, mm-hmm. with music added to it. Mm-hmm. So similar to that of the Harlem Renaissance era, where jazz came out of and art came out of. Right. This is an art form, mm-hmm. and they didn't expect that to last, mm-hmm. Not to really quell rock and roll. Mm-hmm. They didn't like it. Right. Didn't expect it to last. Right. So it's an art form that's making a lot of money and questionable to me, and only out of ignorance, and not that because I don't know, but how much of that money is coming back into our community. Mm-hmm. So you have these few artists who are making it, and you see their names out there, but if they're worth so much more, then what are those people that are taking care of them, the record labels, mm-hmm. The larger record labels, or those who are not independent, that are making even more money than our artists are making? Right. How are they using that money back? Is it money filtering back in the community, right, since it's coming out of our community? Right. Because you don't have many people from Harvard listening to Kanye West.
Exactly. And I'd like to make a personal appeal to all of those hip hop artists out there who are successful in their endeavors. I mean, not all of them have come from very poor mm-hmm. beginnings.
Absolutely.
But for all the ones that have, and even for the ones that haven't, or anybody who wants to contribute to a community that might need help. I mean, we've got a lot of serious situations with the Chicago killings. Just so much violence, so much death, and it's like, why? Why is this happening? What is creating all of this? It's a lack of resource. It's a lack of acknowledgement of the problem. It's a lack of just love and value for your own kind. So let's and I don't want to sound like, oh, love, peace, and happiness, but hey, I think we could use a little of that right now.
Yeah, and that they also, I mean, all of us, and we talked about that in an earlier interview, have an obligation to help those in need. If you came out of a community that was needy, and you have an opportunity to give back to that community, whether it be, monetarily, or whether it be just with the choice of words that you use in your music, that your music has words in it that uplift people out of the community versus stating the obvious of what's going on in the community, which understand, you want to get it off your chest, and people that can identify with that. So you're talking about things that people can gravitate to because they're experiencing that same world that you're in. But also take those words and use positive choice words to uplift them out of the community, right. To let them know there's hope beyond what you're talking about, exactly. That there's hope beyond the murders and the killings, right. and that you have an opportunity to get out of that, just like if I'm a rapper, just like I did. Right. So if I'm able to work hard at my art form, if I'm able to work hard at my craft and get out of the community, so can you. Exactly. And if they put out those type of messages, then a lot more people will be either more creative in what they do in life in order to change their lifestyles or change their situations, or they'll take more serious those things that they do. These are people who spent hours and hours in the studio. These are people who took their craft very seriously and worked just as hard at success than any doctor, any lawyer, any top-ranking officer of the law or top-ranking public official. Right. Anybody who works hard at their craft and put hours and hours into it are going to see the result. Right. And I think that's the message that they should be putting across. How did I get here? Right. This is how I got here. Whatever it is that you like to do, whether it's making shoes or making beats, work hard at it. Continue to go to school. I was watching Arsenio the other night, and there's a popular rapper out now called 2 Chainz. Yeah. And Arsenio brought to his point that he studied the rappers, and here's a guy who is a rapper, but had a 3.5 grade point average in college. I'm wondering if he's putting that out in his message. I don't know his music, but I wonder if he's putting that out beyond the Arsenio Hall show. Right. That, hey, I worked hard in school as well as worked hard in my craft, and the rubber met the road.
So it's definitely about the message being communicated too, but it's also about, as you said, the expression of the surroundings. It's like, don't ignore what's going on, and I think that's what a lot of those guys did. They brought the in-your-face attitude about, yeah, you trying to say this don't happen, but here it is right here. Let me tell you how it went down. Yeah. So definitely, I can understand that. Another thing. Earlier we were talking about food being a problem for farmers in terms of helping them to stay afloat, to get those resources to the communities and the different companies that purchase from them. But somehow, somewhere, people were getting a lot of food, specifically Americans. You hear on the TV or on the internet, you'll see postings about how America's so overweight. America and its eating habits, our restaurants, etc., whatever have you. So the question I have about this is, Americans are becoming more and more overweight. Is gluttony to blame, or is it our food processing industry? Who's to blame for this?
I would say both, and I think that the foods that we are taking the cheaper route in what we eat in our daily living is part of the problem. I mean, because how can you be poor
and be overweight? It never did work for me. I could never figure that out.
Well, the other day I was taking, and I saw how. The other day I was taking my son to school, and he said, "Dad, I want to run in," and it was late. He was rushing. I want to run in and get some breakfast. Fine. He comes out of the store, this big bag of donuts, and the juice. And I said, that's your breakfast? He said, yeah, this will keep me going all day. I said, look at the ingredients. I said, if it's more than 3 paragraphs of ingredients, something's wrong. And sure enough, 3 paragraphs of stuff that we couldn't name. And so that tells me that there are no natural products. We're getting food that is made to either give you more than what you got or sustain its shelf life beyond what's natural.
Right.
My doctor used to tell me that we grew up in the same neighborhood, and we had the conversation of obesity and development of black children and how we're so much bigger and than we were in the 70s and developing so much quicker than we did in the 70s. And he made the comment, he said, well, when we growing up, a chicken wing was about this big. So now you got chicken wings with parts as big as legs. So that says something about what's in our foods, what's being processed in our foods that's changing our metabolism and how we're growing. And he was right. If you're making foods to make food bigger, and then you got these dollar menus that how come this they cost $1 that's supposed to be a chicken sandwich cost $1, but a real chicken sandwich costs $5?
Right.
And they both supposed to be chicken.
Oh my God.
So that tells me that what's in it for $1 is not really chicken.
Right.
It can't be good for me.
Right.
So because I got to spend more money to buy something that's good for me, but you're putting me.
Well,
you're saying
you
that
can't afford it anyway, so you got to go for the.
You got to go something that's probably not good for you.
Right.
And so who do we hold accountable? Do we hold McDonald's accountable? Do we hold Burger King? Do we hold Church's Chicken for their big old chicken wings? Who do we hold accountable? And if the government is regulating this, if the FDA is saying no, this is okay, then maybe we need to look at the FDA.
And then our kids too. I mean, they have to be taught to eat right. And so you take the steps to do that. I mean, like my children, I always had an issue with certain types of foods, and why can't we eat this? And my mom, she was the type, she would cook these full course meals, and she'd just keep on cooking them, and then she'd cook all the food up in the house, and then it wouldn't be nothing left for the rest of the month. And so it's a very complex situation. So in that time that we had food, we ate good. Some people overate, some people underate, and then we starved.
Right. But if you think about it, for the older African Americans, with all of these heart disease and all of these diseases that they're saying, diabetes that we carry, yet our ancestors who live, my grandmother lived to 97, 100, but my grandmother, when I was growing up, we lived in the same building. We had a garden in the backyard, so we weren't eating that processed food.
Okay.
Our slave ancestors, maybe they were getting the stuff that mastered the stuff that they didn't want, and made the most out of it, but yet they were still eating fresh food.
Right, it still wasn't.
They were healthy because they were eating fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, food that came out of the garden and didn't go through a manufacturer and had polysorbates and enzymes, and words that we can't use put on there to sustain it, to give it a longer shelf life.
Right.
They ate fresh every day. Right. And so therefore they were more healthy than we were because of their eating habits and because of they weren't getting that stuff, the cheap stuff that is made now that to have a stronger shelf life, but also makes our kids 7'2" and 300 pounds.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. A lot of stuff going on today. But we'll get to more issues in a couple of other segments here. That's all for Spiritually Intriguing, the Church Edition. Thanks for watching.